Hey, what's up guys, TotallydubbedHD here, and today I'm doing a video review on the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2. Now this is an 18:9 aspect ratio phone which competes with some of the very best flagships currently out there in the market. Now I'd like to thank Gearbest for actually sending this out for review. Link will be down in the description below in case you're interested in purchasing it. It can be found for around £430 on their website. Now bear in mind you've got customs fees and import fees that might be applicable to your country, so I can't comment on that, but that is the price that's listed on Gearbest's website. Now in terms of its competitors, it's got the Galaxy S8 which sits at £530. On Amazon USA it's $630. The LG G6 which is £410, which is quite cheap, and in the US for $480. And then you've got a non-18:9 aspect ratio, but an extremely powerful phone, which is the Honor 9, which sits at £385, and in the US it's $467. Now, prices aside, I'm going to go into how this phone performs to some of the phones I've just mentioned, and other phones out there like the OnePlus 5, and go through the build quality and whatnot with it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now before jumping into specs, I want to quickly talk about what you get in the box. You've got the phone itself with a hard shell carrying case, which is useful to have. It's also got a non-slip surface, great for holding around. You've got a Chinese wall adapter, not very useful in other regions, but nevertheless you can use a wall adapter or use another adapter. As you can see, I've not even used this. You've got a USB Type A to USB Type C cable for charging and data transfers and whatnot, and then you've got a USB Type C to 3.5mm jack, and you might be wondering why on earth do you have that? That's because the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2 doesn't have a 3.5mm jack. That is a huge bummer for me. The fact that it doesn't have any 3.5mm jack I know is a latest trend, but Google, Apple, HTC, all the other manufacturers out there, why are you removing this jack which doesn't need to be removed? Nevertheless, the phone is still very thick or very thin depending on how you want to see it, and it doesn't have a 3.5mm jack. So if you're like me and you want to charge your phone whilst listening to your music in the car or on the go with your headphones, which are wired, then unfortunately you can't do so. If however you don't need to charge your phone, then you're not going to have a problem and you can use this, but then you're going to have this little thing dongling out of your phone the whole time, which kind of defeats the point of a thin phone or a stylish phone. Anyway, that is a manufacturing decision by Xiaomi, and it's something that I can't admire, and it's something that's really annoying me of latest trends. Now around the back of the phone you've got a rear-facing fingerprint reader. It's great, it unlocks very quick, and I must say I'm very impressed with Xiaomi's integration of the fingerprint sensor. You've got a rear-facing 12-megapixel camera, which I'll get into in just a bit, with a dual-tone flash. On the right-hand side, you've got volume rocker and a on and off button and a lock button, and then you've got a SIM tray over here, which takes a dual nano SIMs. And no, there's no micro SD card expansion slot. You're stuck to the 64GB, the only 64GB of ROM space that you've got with the phone, and you've got options of having 128 or 256GB versions as well. Now in terms of the design of the phone, I think it's absolutely stunning. It's very easy to hold as well because of its rounded edges. The Sony XZ Premium, for example, is a square brick, and that pretty much rips your jeans. This, on the other hand, slips in your pocket very nicely and does feel really nice in hand. One thing you might notice is this very reflective screen. When I mean screen, I mean the rear facing plate. It does look beautiful, and it's due to its ceramic design, meaning it's very tough, but this does also mean that it's very reflective. You can see my hands, and also that it does take fingerprints like there's no tomorrow. Not a great thing, but nevertheless it depends on how you see the phone. You've got design, or you've got the actual usability of the phone. In terms of the screen itself, it's absolutely beautiful. It's got an 18:9 aspect ratio, and you can see it pretty much fills up the whole phone. The front-facing camera will feel a bit odd if you're taking selfies normally. You can, of course, flip over your phone, or, as you should normally do, is take a horizontal selfie like so. The front-facing camera is a 5-megapixel shooter, and I must say it does a relatively good job. Now, let's talk about performance. Now, the phone itself has a Snapdragon 835 processor found within it. Now, how does this compare with other flagship phones? Well, it sits pretty much equivalent, I mean literally absolutely equivalent to other flagship phones out there. Galaxy S8, for example, the XZ Premium, the OnePlus 5, the LG G6, all have the same sort of performance. In terms of its GPU, which is the Adreno 540, that also does very well and pretty much is equivalent to the other phones that I just mentioned. Now, this all runs on about 6 GB of RAM, which is plenty of RAM to use, so multitasking is not a problem. You can have loads of tasks open and flick through them. Now, in terms of its software, it runs at Android 7.1 Nougat straight out the box. However, it has a heavy overlay, which is MIUI 9. Now, I've got no sort of complaints with MIUI 9, but I would have much preferred stock Android to be included instead. MIUI 9 has a few customizations that are pretty much Xiaomi exclusive, but they're not deal breakers. And in all honesty, I would have much preferred stock Android or a different type of overlay that takes less RAM and or isn't as intrusive. Now, I should mention, in terms of software, you're going to have to install the Play Store. It doesn't come with any of the Google apps pre-installed, so you're going to have to go to the My App Store and then download this weird looking Play Store, which is completely Chinese. Hit the green button, hit the blue button, then a green button, and then you'll have the Play Store installed with Google's framework. Now, this might put off quite a few people because the fact it doesn't have Google apps installed by default is a little bit edgy. Moving on from that, in terms of installing the apps, they had no problems, and I didn't have any sort of conflict. The fact that this was a once Chinese phone. This is an international branded phone, and yes, you've got all the LTE bands throughout the whole world, so you're not going to have any problems with that. Now, moving on to its display. Now, the display is a 18:9 aspect ratio display. Now, it does look beautiful in terms of looking at it as well. It gets pretty bright in comparison to some of the phones out there, but it isn't going to be as bright or as color accurate as the Galaxy S8 or the LG G6. So in other words, it's a slightly toned down version of it. In terms of display itself, it's a 5.99-inch IPS display, and one thing that really does set it apart against the other flagships that I mentioned before is that it's got an only 1080p display. Now, you might be thinking that's not a big deal given the fact that your phone is going to be pretty close to you while you're looking at it, but in comparison to the other phones, which either cost the same amount if not slightly more, then you'd be saying, okay, well, I am losing out on those features, which is, for example, if I want to watch VR, the 1440p display will be a lot better on the eyes than a 1080p display. Now, in terms of its connectivity, it's got Wi-Fi 8.0 2.11 AC. It's dual band Wi-Fi with Bluetooth 5.0 as well. In terms of its battery, it's got a built-in non-removable 3400 battery. Now, the battery itself lasts a relative amount. It's not amazing, again, in comparison to some of its competitors, but it does do well. Now, moving on to its camera. Now, the camera is a rear 12 megapixel f2.0 aperture camera, which features OIS as well and dual tone flash. Now, the camera, I compared it to my Huawei P9. Now, the Huawei P9 is my go-to phone. I absolutely love it, and I must say it does a very good job. In fact, it does an extremely good job in comparison to some of the phones I've come across. For example, the Google Pixel, it does as good as a Google Pixel, and that's pretty much singing a lot of praise. Now, comparing the pictures between them, you'll be able to see over here that the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2 captures a lot more detail, and the way it does HDR as well is fantastic. It brings out all the details that is lost in the background, and in terms of the lighting quality, the color tones, everything is very good. In terms of low light performance, it does also a very good job again, bringing out a lot of detail, especially when HDR is enabled, and that'll be pretty much for outdoor shots. So camera quality, I must say, very impressed with Xiaomi. Camera quality is top notch. It's not as good as a Galaxy S8 or Pixel 2 or iPhone 8, but it's up there with some of the best. And that pretty much leads me on to the conclusion. Will I recommend the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2? In all honesty, I can't say I would, and that's mainly due to its competitors. It's not to say the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2 is not a good phone. It's quite the opposite. It's a fantastic phone. And the way that Xiaomi have designed the phone, the way that the 18:9 aspect ratio of the phone looks like, and how the phone feels just generally speaking in terms of performance, in terms of its camera quality, everything. It does a great job, but it's not a fantastic job. And more so, its competitors such as the Galaxy S8 offer water resistance, which this doesn't, have a 3.5mm jack, which this doesn't, and has a higher resolution display, which again this one lacks in. And finally, it's more readily available, comes from local markets. For example, in the UK you can buy it from Amazon.co.uk versus this importing it in from China. And the fact that it actually comes with Google Apps pre-installed, whereas this doesn't, might put off quite a few people. So in other words, you're looking at about £100 difference, if not less, between this and a Galaxy S8. Would I invest the extra £100? Absolutely I would. If not, looking at a phone at the same price, the LG G6 is a fantastic phone for its price. And for that price, for 410 odd pounds, it's cheaper than this and pretty much offers a better specification than this phone. So in all honesty, why would you get the Mi Mix 2? There's no reason behind it. So that's my personal opinion about it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this phone, of the video, of its competitors. Favourite and share this video to help my channel grow, as it's always appreciated. Like and subscribe if you like this video, or dislike it if you don't, whatever you want to do. And that's about it, guys. Make sure you check in the links in the description below in case you're interested in this phone. Again, huge thanks to GearBest for providing me the phone for review. And the competitors, such as the Galaxy S8, LG G6, Honor 9, links will be in the description below. Alright guys, totally dubbed out. Take care and bye bye.